Most men say they want greatness. They say it in the mirror. They say it to their friends. They say it in the comments section of videos like this one. They write it in their journals. They tattoo it on their skin. They put it in their Instagram bios. But saying you want greatness and being willing to pay for it are two completely different things. And the price, when you finally see it clearly, is the reason most men turn back.
Not because they are weak, not because they lack talent, not because the world is unfair, though sometimes it is. They turn back because nobody told them the truth about what greatness actually costs. Not the motivational version of the cost, not the highlight reel of the sacrifice, the real cost, the full price, the part nobody puts on the poster. That is what this video is about. If you stay until the end, you will understand something that most men spend their entire lives learning too late. And if that conversation is useful to you, subscribe to Knowledgeism. New videos every week. And if you want to go deeper, the link to our Patreon is in the description. That is where we go further than YouTube allows. Now let us begin. Aristotle spent decades observing human beings, not casually, with the same precision a surgeon brings to anatomy. He wanted to understand what separated the men who flourished from the men who wasted their potential. And after all that observation, he arrived at a word, arete. It is translated as virtue, but that translation loses something important. A more accurate translation is excellence, the full actualization of what a thing is capable of, the knife that cuts perfectly, the eye that sees clearly, the man who becomes everything he was built to become. Aristotle believed that every human being has a specific capacity for excellence, a potential that is uniquely theirs, and he believed that the deepest form of human suffering was not poverty, not illness, not loss. It was living and dying without ever having actualized that potential. He called it the failure of eudaimonia, the failure to flourish. Now here is what Aristotle understood that most people skip over when they read his work. Arete is not a gift. It is not a personality trait you either have or do not have. It is a practice, a daily, deliberate, often painful practice of choosing the harder path when the easier one is available. Every single day. Not on the days you feel inspired, not when the conditions are right, every day. Including the days when nothing is working, including the days when the people closest to you do not believe in what you are building, including the days when you genuinely cannot see the point. That is the first layer of the price. Consistency without guaranteed reward. Most men can sprint. Give a man a deadline, a crisis, a moment of inspiration, and he will work with extraordinary intensity. But the dangerous man, the man who actually builds something that lasts, he is not a sprinter. He is a man who runs every single day, whether he feels like it or not, whether anyone is watching or not, whether the destination is visible or not. Aristotle was not romantic about this. He did not dress it up. He said that excellence is a habit, meaning it is built through repetition, not revelation. There is no single moment where you become great. There are only the accumulated choices you make every day to behave like the man you are trying to become, long before the world acknowledges you as that man. That gap between who you are choosing to be and who the world currently sees, that gap can last years, sometimes decades. And most men cannot survive it psychologically. They need external validation too quickly. They need the results to show up before they are willing to keep investing. The man who pays the full price has made peace with that gap. He works inside it. He builds inside it. He becomes inside it. Let us bring in a man who understood this at a level that most people find uncomfortable. Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche spent most of his life being ignored, then misunderstood, then sick, then insane. He published some of the most significant philosophical works in human history and sold almost nothing during his lifetime. He wrote letters to publishers who never responded. He sat alone in rented rooms in Switzerland and Italy, half blind, in physical pain, and kept writing. Not because success was coming. He had no evidence that success was coming. He wrote because he believed he had something true to say, and because not saying it was, to him, a form of death. Nietzsche had a concept he called the will to power, and I want to be precise here, because this idea has been badly distorted over the years. The will to power was not about dominating other people. It was not a justification for cruelty or ambition at the expense of others. What Nietzsche meant was this: the deepest drive in a human being is not the drive for pleasure, not the drive to avoid pain, but the drive to express and expand what you are capable of, to grow, to overcome, to become more. He believed that when a man suppresses this drive, when he makes himself smaller to fit into a comfortable life, something inside him begins to rot. He called this the slave morality, the psychology of a man who has given up on becoming and instead built an elaborate philosophical framework to justify his smallness. You see this everywhere. The man who tells himself he does not really want success because success is corrupting. The man who calls ambition greed. The man who has decided that wanting more is somehow immoral and has surrounded himself with people who agree because their agreement keeps him comfortable in his mediocrity. Nietzsche had no patience for this, and neither should you. But here is the part of Nietzsche that the motivational accounts never quote. He was not telling you that the will to power is easy to follow. He was telling you it is the hardest thing a human being can do, because the moment you decide to fully become what you are capable of becoming, you are also deciding to leave behind everything that was built around a smaller version of you, your friendships, sometimes your family dynamics, your habits, your identity, your relationship with comfort, your relationship with approval. All of it gets placed on the altar. That is the second layer of the price, identity death. The man you are right now is comfortable. He knows his role. He knows his place in the social hierarchy around him. He knows what people expect of him. And there is a deep biological safety in that familiarity. The man you are trying to become is a stranger, not just to the people around you, to yourself, and becoming that stranger requires the temporary destruction of who you currently are. Most men stop here, not because they are cowards, but because nobody prepared them for the grief of it. Because yes, it is a form of grief. You are losing a version of yourself. You are losing relationships that were built around that version. You are losing the comfort of being known and accepted as you currently are. Nietzsche called this process becoming, and he said it was the most violent internal experience a man could go through. Not violent in the physical sense, violent in the sense that it breaks things inside you that felt permanent. If you are in that process right now, the disorientation you feel is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that you are actually paying the price. Now I want to talk about Marcus Aurelius, because Marcus represents something specific in this conversation. He represents the man who had every reason to stop paying the price and chose not to. When Marcus Aurelius became emperor of Rome, he did not walk into a golden era. He walked into one of the most turbulent periods in Roman history. Plagues, military threats from multiple borders simultaneously, political betrayal from people he trusted, the constant grinding weight of decisions that affected millions of lives. And here is what strikes you when you read Meditations, the private journal he kept throughout his reign. The man never stopped working on himself. In the middle of all of that, he was still waking up every morning and asking himself the same questions. Am I living according to my values? Am I letting other people's behavior disturb my judgment? Am I using my time on things that matter? He had the most powerful position in the known world. He could have stopped. He could have decided that he had earned the right to coast. He never did. Why? Because Marcus understood something that takes most men a lifetime to learn. Greatness is not a destination you arrive at and then maintain effortlessly. It is a practice you engage in every single day until you die. The moment you stop paying the price is the moment the thing you built starts to decay. This is the third layer of the price. There is no finish line. Every man who has ever built something significant has gone through a version of this reckoning. The moment where they realized that the success they worked so hard to achieve was not the end of the journey. It was the beginning of a more demanding one. Because now you have something to protect. Now you have people depending on you. Now the standard you have set for yourself is visible to the world, and every day you have to show up and meet it. The men who cannot accept this are the ones you see who build something great and then destroy it. Not because they are self-destructive by nature, but because unconsciously they were chasing a rival, not practice. And when a rival turned out to be another starting line, they did not know what to do with the disappointment. The man who pays the full price has no illusions about this. He does not work hard so that one day he can stop working hard. He works hard because he has come to understand that the work itself is the point, that the discipline, the focus, the daily practice of becoming, that is not the cost of the life he wants. That is the life he wants. Let us talk about Seneca, because Seneca adds a dimension to this conversation that is easy to miss. Seneca was one of the wealthiest men in Rome. He was a Stoic philosopher, a playwright, an advisor to Emperor Nero. He had money, influence, and intellectual respect on a scale that few men in history have achieved simultaneously. And he wrote obsessively about time, not time management in the modern productivity app sense, time in the philosophical sense, the irreversible, unrepeatable nature of every moment of your life. He wrote that we do not have a short life. We have a life that we waste. The man who says he does not have time has in most cases simply not made the choice about what his time is for. Seneca watched men spend their entire lives accumulating wealth they never enjoyed, chasing status they never felt, building reputations that gave them no peace. And he wrote about it with a kind of urgency that still jumps off the page 2,000 years later. He said that the man who is everywhere is nowhere, the man who has no clear purpose for his time, the man who allows the demands and opinions and requests of others to fill every hour, that man arrives at the end of his life and finds that it belongs to everyone except himself. This is the fourth layer of the price. Time is the currency, and you can only spend it once. Every man has 24 hours. The dangerous man is obsessive about how those hours are allocated, not because he is rigid, not because he has no room for spontaneity or rest, but because he understands at a deep level that time given to things that do not build toward his purpose is time he will never get back. This creates a ruthlessness that makes some people uncomfortable. The dangerous man says no to things that other men feel obligated to say yes to. He protects his mornings. He chooses his social engagements deliberately. He leaves events early. He stops conversations that are going nowhere. People sometimes interpret this as arrogance. It is not arrogance. It is the behavior of a man who takes his own life seriously enough to make difficult choices about where his time goes. Seneca also made a point that I want you to sit with. He said that you should live each day as if it could be your last, not in the reckless, nothing matters sense that phrase is usually used, in the opposite sense. If today were your last day, would you spend it the way you spent it? Would the work you did today reflect the man you are trying to become? Would you be at peace with how you used the hours? Most men, if they answer that question honestly, feel a quiet horror. Not because they are lazy, but because the gap between how they are spending their time and how they should be spending their time is enormous. And they know it. They just do not look at it directly very often. Look at it. That discomfort is important. That discomfort is trying to tell you something. Now I want to address something that most videos in this space avoid, because they are afraid of the conversation, or because it does not fit the motivational narrative. The price of greatness includes suffering that you do not choose and cannot control. Every great man in history went through seasons of total darkness. Not self-imposed difficulty, not voluntary hardship, genuine suffering, loss, betrayal, failure on a scale that humiliated them publicly, illness, grief, periods where everything they had built collapsed. Nietzsche lost his health, his relationships, and eventually his mind. Marcus Aurelius lost children, close friends, and fought a war he did not start for most of his reign. Machiavelli lost his position, was tortured by political enemies, and spent years in exile writing a book that was initially dedicated to the men who had destroyed his career. Viktor Frankl lost his entire family in the concentration camps. He walked out of Auschwitz and wrote Man's Search for Meaning, one of the most important books of the 20th century. He did not write about how to avoid suffering. He wrote about how to find meaning inside it. This is the fifth layer of the price. Involuntary suffering is part of the journey, not a detour, part of the road. The dangerous man does not pretend this is not true. He does not build a philosophy that only works when things are going well. He builds a philosophy that holds in the darkness, that gives him something to stand on when everything external has been stripped away. The Stoics called this the inner citadel, the place inside a man that cannot be touched by circumstance. Not because he feels no pain. Marcus Aurelius was clear that the Stoic ideal was not the absence of feeling, but because he has built something inside himself that is more fundamental than his circumstances, his values, his clarity about what matters, his commitment to the practice regardless of the outcome. When you build this, you become genuinely dangerous, not to other people, to every force in the world that is trying to use your fear, your pain, your uncertainty, to keep you small and compliant and easy to manage. Let us talk about the social price, because this is the one that breaks the most men. When you decide to become more than the people around you expected, when you start operating at a level that makes the people in your current environment uncomfortable, you will lose people. Not all of them, but some of them. Sometimes the ones you least expect. There is a phenomenon that psychologists call tall poppy syndrome. It describes the social impulse to cut down the person who grows above the average. It operates in families, in friend groups, in workplaces, in communities, and it is almost always unconscious. The people doing it are not usually aware of what they are doing. They just suddenly have a lot of criticisms of your choices. They find your ambition exhausting. They make comments designed to remind you of your origins. They tell you stories about people who tried what you are trying and failed. They question your motives. They express concern for your well-being in a way that is really an expression of their discomfort with your growth. Machiavelli wrote about this with characteristic bluntness. He said that there is nothing more dangerous to carry out than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things, because the innovator has for enemies all those who have done well under the old conditions, and only lukewarm defenders in those who may do well under the new. The men around you who are invested in the old version of you will resist the new one, sometimes actively, sometimes passively, sometimes with love and genuine concern, which makes it harder to navigate than outright hostility. The sixth layer of the price is this: you will have to disappoint people who love you in order to become who you are capable of becoming. This does not mean cutting everyone off. It does not mean becoming cold or isolated. It means being honest about what you are building and understanding that not everyone will be able to come with you. Some relationships will evolve, some will not survive the evolution, and you will have to grieve those losses without letting the grief become a reason to stop growing. The dangerous man loves the people in his life, and he builds anyway. There is one more dimension of this price that I want to spend real time on, because it is the deepest one, and it is the one that is almost never discussed. The price of greatness includes the permanent loss of a certain kind of innocence. Let me explain what I mean. Before a man commits seriously to building something, before he accepts the full weight of what he is trying to become, there is a kind of comfortable ambiguity available to him. He can tell himself that he would do great things if only the circumstances were different, if he had more time, more money, more support, a better starting position. This ambiguity is protective. As long as you have not truly committed, you cannot truly fail. You are always pre-launch, always preparing, always on the verge of beginning. The moment you commit fully, that protection disappears. Now you are in the game. Now your choices are visible. Now your results, or the current absence of them, are real. Now you cannot hide behind potential anymore, because you are actually attempting to actualize it. This is terrifying, and it is supposed to be terrifying. That terror is not a sign that you are making a mistake. It is a sign that the stakes are real, that you have decided to play for something that actually matters to you. Kierkegaard wrote about what he called the leap of faith. He was writing about religion, but the structure of the idea applies perfectly here. The leap is the moment when you move from theoretical commitment to actual commitment, from planning to doing, from wanting to becoming. And the defining feature of the leap is that there is no guarantee on the other side. You cannot see the landing before you jump. You cannot know whether the years of sacrifice will produce the result you are working toward. You cannot know whether the vision you are building toward is achievable or delusional. You jump anyway, because the alternative, staying on the safe side, staying in the life that is comfortable and known and approved of, costs something too. It costs you the knowledge of what you are actually capable of, and that cost, paid slowly across a lifetime, is more devastating than any failure. This is the seventh and deepest layer of the price. You have to be willing to find out. Not knowing is comfortable. Attempting and failing is painful. But attempting and failing still puts you in a category of man that the man who never attempted will never understand. The man who paid the price. even if the result was not what he hoped, is not the same man as the one who kept his potential safely theoretical. Now let me bring this together, because I want you to leave this video with something specific, not a feeling, a framework. The full price of greatness has 7 components. Consistency without guaranteed reward. The willingness to do the work every single day before the results are visible, before the world validates you, before you can prove to anyone, including yourself, that it is working. Identity death. The willingness to let go of who you currently are in order to become who you are capable of being, including the relationships, the habits, and the self-concept that were built around a smaller version of you. No finish line. The acceptance that greatness is a practice, not a destination, that the work does not end when the results arrive, that success is the beginning of a more demanding chapter, not the end of the demanding one. Time as the currency. The ruthless, deliberate allocation of your hours to the things that build toward your purpose. The willingness to say no to things that other people think you should want, because you are clear about what you actually want. Involuntary suffering. The acceptance that the road includes darkness you did not choose, and the commitment to building an inner philosophy strong enough to hold in that darkness, not to avoid it, to survive it and build through it. The social price. The willingness to disappoint people who love you, to grow beyond the expectations of the environment you came from, to lose some relationships in the process, and to grieve those losses without letting them stop you. The leap. The willingness to fully commit to a vision you cannot guarantee, to step off the edge of the known and discover what you are made of in the space between the jump and the landing. These are not optional. You cannot pay 2 of these and skip the others. Greatness does not offer partial credit. You pay the full price, or you do not build the full thing. I want to end with Seneca, because he said something that I think is the most honest summary of everything we have covered today. He wrote that it is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that things are difficult. Read that again. The price of greatness feels enormous from the outside. From a distance, looking at what the journey requires, most men decide it is too much. They decide before they begin that they cannot afford it. But every man who has actually paid the price will tell you the same thing, that the paying of it was not what they feared it would be, that the daily commitment, once made, became its own reward, that the identity they built on the other side of the sacrifice was so much more solid, so much more real, so much more satisfying than the comfortable identity they left behind, that they would not trade the difficulty for anything. They did not regret the price. They regretted every year they spent standing at the edge deciding whether to pay it. You are standing at that edge right now. The question this video is asking you is not whether you are talented enough, not whether you started too late, not whether the world will be fair to you. The question is simple. Are you willing to pay the full price of greatness? Not the Instagram version, not the version where the sacrifice looks cinematic and the result is guaranteed. The real version, the ugly, lonely, unglamorous, daily, decade-long, relationship-testing, identity-destroying, faith-requiring version. If you are, then you already belong to a small and serious group of men, and everything you need to build what you are here to build is already inside you. This is Knowledgeism. Subscribe if this conversation is the kind of conversation you want more of, and join us on Patreon. The link is in the description, because that is where we go deeper, where we get specific, where we build together,